RWBY Volume 4, Episode 9, 2 Steps Forward, 2 Steps Back. Now, before I get into my review, of course, you guys can see I'm wearing a RWBY hat. I just got this yesterday, and I thought it was really cool. I got this from Hot Topic for anyone who might be interested, so I wanted to mention that for anyone who might have that question. That way you don't have to put it in the comments. I got it from Hot Topic, so there you go, just to let you guys know where I got this from. Getting into the episode, this was a really fun episode. I love this one. It is the first episode, which is, it's crazy to think this, but it's the first episode where we got to see all the girls in the same episode. And I actually really loved it for that. It was fairly fast paced. We got 4 different stories. We've had all these stories being, built up so much this volume. We've had, the introduction stuff, like, this is what everyone's doing after, the time skip. This is how everyone's feeling. This is how they're growing with what they're feeling right now. This is how they're breaking away in certain aspects, like Weiss. And I like this one. It's like we have the setup now. We have these characters. We know what they're feeling. We know where they're going, at least, in some regards. And now we're kind of getting there. We're getting a little bit closer. And for some characters, we're definitely getting there. Like Weiss, I feel like she's breaking out in the next episode, I would assume. So I love the way they did it. So we start with Yang, and I thought it was going to focus on her because when you go, to Rooster Teeth, that was like the thumbnail that they chose. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a Yang-focused episode. And it started with Yang, and then it went to Weiss, and I was like, man, Weiss, this is true either way, Weiss is getting a lot of time this volume. I feel like she's been in it the most, like, out of any character. I think she's been getting, like, the most solitary focus. And I kind of like that, because it's such a transition for her character from where she'd been, and we've just been watching that slowly continue. And I really love that with the way her character has changed. I have personally loved that journey, so I'm totally fine with her getting more screen time. And especially with the way they end it, where she summons the night, which looked amazing, and it was, I just love the design for that, where it's like the blue and white, and it's almost, I think this kind of, it wasn't solid like the boar, that's like the only creature I can't think of the name of, but it didn't seem too solid like that. It kind of looked like it was almost like on fire, like flames were coming off of it, so I was like, that looks really awesome, and I can't wait to see where they go with this. So she's got the butler, Klein. He's going to help her out. So, this is kind of Snow White getting help from her dwarves. I'm curious how he's going to help her with him being like the 7 dwarves in one. How the personalities are going to like kind of fight with each other. Like, oh, we shouldn't do this, but I want to help you get out because I know what your dad's doing and he kind of sucks and your brother's a little a-hole and stuff like that. I hate that guy. Like, Wheatley is his name, because I'm like, when I hate characters, it's like subconsciously I force myself to forget, because it's like, I suck at names in general, but when I don't like a character, I almost make myself forget their name, because like, they don't even deserve to be remembered like that. But I am excited to see where they go with all the girls, but I'm very curious how Weiss is going to do this, and I would assume that her first step would have to be getting to Ironwood, because he seems to be like the only, outside of Klein, I would assume Ironwood, and maybe even Winter, if she's actually still in the area, maybe they're the only 3 people that can help her, on her entire continent at this point. So I am curious how she's going to escape, if she's just going to randomly get a ship, or if she'll go to her sister or Ironwood. But either way, she's breaking out, and I'm excited to see it. And we got a little bit of insight into Wheatley in this episode, where we find out that he actually doesn't have the family's semblance, which I thought was very cool. And they kept it, and of course the way they do it, I would assume that their mother has this semblance and it's not based off of their father. And so Winter has it and Weiss has it, but Wheatley doesn't. And very interesting dialogue, because Weiss asks him, it's like, hey, are you jealous of me? Like, are you jealous of Winter and I because we have the semblance and you don't? And he's like, I always thought it was beneath me. And when he said that, I was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, if you think superpowers, because that's what they are, like, if you think superpowers are beneath you, you're clearly on cocaine. Like, that just doesn't make any sort of sense whatsoever. But he's like, I've always thought it was beneath me. And people like Father, I'm like, clearly you're both dumb then. And, he's like, I never saw what one huntress could do compared to an army. He's like, that's why we have one. And that I get, one person versus an army, sure. But to say that an army of people with powers is better than an army of people without powers, that doesn't make sense. So saying that, I always thought having abilities was beneath me or something, like, that's just dumb. Like, that, yeah, I know they own an army, basically, but on an individual level, who gives enough? She has powers and you don't. She's better than you. So, not that's kind of harsh to say. I say myself when I say it out loud, but you know what I mean. Like, he sucks anyway, so I kind of don't mind. But it was just crazy when he said that. I'm like, who the f thinks superpowers are like beneath them? It was just crazy. But I'm excited to see where Weiss is headed. Yang is getting closer, of course, to kind of breaking through sort of the mental barrier that she's had. She's been training with her dad. They mentioned that it had been weeks. So they've been training for quite a while, and she seems much better. And they also, and I love the fact that they reference her semblance and stuff, and her dad's like, you're predictable, and you use your semblance all the time. And, she's like, what's the difference between me using mine and other people always using theirs? He's like, well, theirs isn't basically a temper tantrum. Like, you can't just rely on your power. And the way he explained it, like, there's a very specific line where he seems to explain the weakness in Yang's semblance, which is if she utilizes her semblance too much, if she doesn't beat them within a certain time limit, she's left weakened. It's almost like she utilizes too much power and she like overexerts herself. But we've always seen it like, okay, she basically goes Super Saiyan and then she beats him, and then that's it. It's like that's the end of the battle. Like, she beat him. But the way he explained it is like, what if you do that and then you miss? Like, that's basically what it says. Like, if you miss or they're stronger, you're just left weakened. And at least to me, the way he explained it was like, so if she's kind of on a time limit, if she uses her powers, or she uses her semblance up, then she's screwed. Like, if she doesn't get that one great hit in, or those couple of great punches in, that's game over. Like, she's left even weaker than she was when she was just getting beat up. So it's like she was kind of losing, and then she goes kind of full burst. And then if that doesn't work, she's not here. She's like way back here now, so she's much weaker. And I was like, that's very interesting. I never even thought, I just never thought it had a weakness. It was just the more she gets hit, the more power she has. It's potential and kinetic energy. And it's kind of like, well, eventually she'll use up all that kinetic energy and there's nothing left but potential. But having potential doesn't mean you have any strength left. So I thought it was interesting when they said that. And I was like, wow, that they kind of explain a weakness within her ability. So I thought that was very cool that they talked about that. They make reference to her first haircut and stuff, which I thought was really funny. But those two stories were great. We get Blake and Sun chasing down this random assassin who turns out to be Ilya, I believe is her name. She's super awesome. She's a chameleon. Because at first I was like, I'm so confused why her skin just changed color. And then, because she was changing color like crazy. And so first it was like black because she was in ninja mode. And then she changed to like a normal skin color. And then she changed like red, and her hair, and I love the fact that her hair changes colors too. I thought that was actually really awesome, and they use negatives, which is really great. So when she turned red, I don't think orange is the negative of red, but it was very different. So like she turns red and her hair turns orange. When she was green, her hair turned blue, or maybe it was vice versa. No, I think she was green and her hair turned blue, yeah, which is definitely not negative. Orange and blue is a negative. But I thought it was really cool. I was like, I love how this looks. And at first I didn't get it. I was like, why is she changing colors? And then I finally got, when she turned green, I was like, oh, because she's a chameleon. Like, that's when it finally got me. Like, oh, she's a chameleon. She can change colors. I love her weapon, which is like, it's weird because at first I thought it was like a whip, but it seems to be more like, it didn't seem like it really curved. It seemed like it just expands and it just goes forward. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, at first it looked like it would, like she could actually whip it, but it seems like she can just extend it, and it's more like a rapier, kind of like Weiss's weapon, because that's the first thing I thought too. I was like, oh, it's a blade with, the trigger on the end, and I thought of Weiss's weapon, and it does kind of work like that, except it literally, extends outward. So I thought that was pretty cool, but excuse me, I loved her weapon. I love the fact that, she can change colors and stuff like that. We also got to see Sun use his semblance again, and this was the first time we got to see him use more than two, I don't know if they actually have a name for him yet, but two of like the sort of images of himself. So that was cool, because he used like 4, and I was like, I was wondering if he could do more than that, because every time we've seen it, we've only seen him do 2, so it's just, maybe that's just what he's comfortable with. And because he used like 4 to keep the girl held down, Ilya held down, And then, of course, that made him super weak because he used so many, and so he was out of it. And then she like hits him, and I don't know if that used up his aura because he was actually bleeding. So it made me wonder, like, is that utilizing his aura when he does that, and that's why she was actually able to do that, or was he just close to, or is her weapon just like, if their aura is a bit lower, she can just break through it, because we've seen that before with Adam, or he's not even remotely affected by that with his weapon. So it made me wonder. Plus, what she did, it had like lightning shoot out of the end of it, so maybe that was a part of it as well, where it had nothing to do with his aura, and it could just bypass it because it was lightning based or something like that. But either way, Sun gets knocked out. I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm not worried about Sun. However, we get to our next story with Crow, and I'm a little worried. I don't know what the heck they're going to do with him right now, because I'm like, yeah, him being sick will be a catalyst for something. And I guess this is the catalyst moment. I thought it would be a little bit later, but this was the catalyst moment with them having to split up, which really scared me. I was like, man, I thought, no big deal. He's sick, but the team's together. And then they get to this sign where it's like, oh man, we have to go this way to get to the big city, but we have to go through the mountains, and it's hard to carry Crow this way. Or we could go through the city that's been destroyed, but it would take longer, and also for whatever reason Ren just doesn't want to go. And as soon as that happened, I was like, man, that's where his family was killed. Like, that has to be what happened, because they had the village where his parents wanted to build basically make a new kingdom for themselves, and that didn't work out. And there's just one crazy super Grim, which is probably what we're going to be seeing based on the giant footprint. So that's probably the Grim that we'll be running into, if not in the next episode, maybe the one after. So maybe that's what happened to that Grim. Like, maybe they stopped developing the town because the Grim came through, or maybe they were developing the town and everybody went back home, and that's when the Grim attacked and they all died in their actual home village. So whatever it was, that's where Ren's parents died. Maybe Nora's parents as well. She didn't seem nearly as upset as Ren did, so I don't know if that's where her parents actually died at. And so maybe his parents died first, and then he went to be with her and her parents, and then maybe they died after that or something. But he seemed more upset than she did, so I feel like that's where his parents died. And so of course they go up the mountain, and now we have RWBY and Jean carrying Crow, and they walk over the the giant hoof print, which I was surprised they missed that. Somebody mentioned that in the comments, and I thought the same thing, like, how'd they miss that giant print? But either way, I was really worried, because they take off and it's like, yeah, we can do this, and we'll get up to the mountain, and we can at least get a lay of the land and all that stuff. And I'm just like, man, that's still scary, because they just split the team up. They'll probably be fine, but we have RWBY and Jean who need to protect Crow, who also has an interesting line. I think he said, like, she's not coming, Ty, which I thought was interesting. I was like, wonder if they'll explain that, which I'm sure they will. But, he said that, and I was like, that's interesting that they kind of just threw that in there. So there's something, maybe that was him giving the news, like, that's when RWBY's mom died or something like that. Or maybe that's when Raven took off. It's one or the other. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but it was definitely a fun episode, but I'm super scared now. Like, I wasn't that worried before. I was like, he'll probably be fine. But now it's like, they split the team up, and you have two people trying to protect a man who's could possibly be on his actual deathbed right now. And it's a little worrying. Like, I'm really freaked out by what they're going to do with that story now. And maybe Raven will help, because she was there at the campfire. That was the one thing where she was still falling behind them, and she showed up at night. Maybe she'll still help them out. Maybe she'll be there to take out this giant Grim. Maybe the bandits are already in that village. Maybe, since that village has been destroyed, maybe they stay there. They did it in the world of Remnant, where it's like, oh, they don't stick around in one place for too long, because the Grim will come find them. But sometimes you gotta settle down, so maybe that's what they did. Maybe that's where they are right now. Who knows? Maybe that's just like a little trading post where it's like, alright, we like wiped this city out a long time ago, but every once in a while we have to come through to get some more supplies, so we kind of leave this place alone now that we've kind of destroyed it in the past. But who knows where they're headed with it, but I am excited for it, and I love this episode. We get to see all the girls. They almost did it in reverse, because we started with Yang and we ended with RWBY. The only reason I don't think they actually did like the colors in reverse is because then it would have been like 2 action stories and then 2 non-action stories, because it was like Yang was training with her dad, so it's like a bit of action and stuff. Also Zwei, I'm glad I didn't forget that. Zwei is in there, so we got to see Zwei for the first time with the new design. It's actually weird seeing Zwei like this because it almost looks like he has different eyes, and that's what I noticed the most. But it's funny coming off of not only the former animation, but also RWBY Chibi, like over the summer and stuff. Having those 2 different versions, it's weird seeing this third new version, because he was in RWBY Chibi like quite a bit, and he was like very tiny and very different. And then seeing this, I was like, it's actually really weird going from RWBY Chibi to this. And that I didn't have that effect with any of the other characters, but maybe it's because Zwei didn't show up that much in the original series to begin with. He wasn't in there that much. So to see him in this new form, I was like, something about him just like, he's just like, the eyes just look different. Plus he has a little bone dog collar, which I thought was a cool addition. But I think that's why they didn't do the girls in reverse, because it was like action sequence with Yang. Weiss was talking with her brother and stuff like that, and you know, she summons the knight in the suit of armor. But there's not really a ton of action. It was just a talking sequence, and then we got to Blake and Sun. That was definitely the action sequence, and then it ends with RWBY, and that's a talking sequence again. So I think that's why they didn't do like a full reverse of the name. And I'm fine with that. It's not like it would have mattered. Like, oh, they reversed the name, and they, you know, that's how they did it. But I think that's why it came about that way. It was like they almost did, but then it would have been like action, action, talking, talking, for like just action first half, talking second half. So I like it better that they did, you know, kind of go back and forth with it, where it's just like, you know, let's just do it this way, because that's just better storytelling. It makes sense to have a better balance than one half is this and the other half is that. But definitely a great episode. I would love it if more episodes were like this, where it does, you know, technically it would be less story per character, but I still think I'd like it that way if it was like, you know, each character is doing a different thing. Action-y, not action, action, not action, or vice versa, where it's not action and action, you know, end it that way. But I doubt they'll all be like that just from now on. But I really loved it for it, you know, actually doing that for the first time this volume, where we get to see all the girls in one episode. And, you know, and I think with them showing us this, where we see a snippet from every single story, it's kind of telling us like, hey, we're close, like we're getting there now, because it's every single story at one time. Like, all right, here's what Yang just did, here's what Weiss just did, she's breaking out, here's what just happened with Blake and Sun getting wounded, and here's what happened with all of Team Ranger and them splitting up now. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. I really hope that, I doubt it, but I hope that this kind of leads us to seeing what Jean is truly capable of with his semblance, fighting this creature. Maybe we'll see Raven come back again. I always love seeing her, because her design is like one of the coolest things ever. So no matter what we're headed towards, it's something big. Like, they've shown all the girls in this episode. Here's what's happening with everybody. We're getting to the next big steps for all our characters. And I can't wait to see what they do with these last couple episodes. I don't know, like I said, if they're going to extend the season or not. I mentioned that, I think in the last episode, we're close to the end. And I think next week is going to be a World of Remnant episode. But we're close to the end. So it's about to kick up. So I'm definitely excited for it, of course. We'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And for this week, I actually want to know which portion of this episode was actually your favorite. For me personally, I have to go with the action sequence with Blake and Sun. Not just because it was an action sequence, but for one, we got to see Sun use his semblance in a new way, which I love his semblance because we never get to see it. We've seen it twice, this being the third time actually. So that was really awesome. We got to see a chameleon faunus, which, like I said, the color design and stuff, and maybe that was based off her emotions when she turned red and stuff like that. But I loved it. I was like, I love the design. It's very out there, like her turning green and her hair being like almost neon blue. I was like, I love that. That's crazy color schemes, but it looks really cool. And also she's a chameleon, so there's a million, you know, camouflage, all that stuff makes perfect sense. But I love that. Her history with Blake, you know, they kind of bring it up. I knew it was going to be her too. Like, as soon as it kept going and I was like, oh, they stopped to actually fight, I was like, it's going to get revealed that it's her friend that, you know, wanted to see her. And I was like, yep, I knew that was going to happen, but I'm excited to see where they take it. So that was my favorite out of the 4 story pieces, but I would love to know yours. And of course, like I said, what you thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.